What's going on, guys? Graham Giason Matthews here from FanSided Daily DDT.com, and today we're talking to AEW star QT Marshall about all things AEW and Satnam Singh's ongoing progress as part of the former Dallas Mavericks player, now joining AEW, and so much more. QT, how you doing, sir?
Very good. How are you?
Doing excellent. I'm actually looking forward to Dynamite tomorrow night. I'll be there in Boston, so I'm looking forward to a fun show on Wednesday.
Oh yeah, it should be great.
It's going to be a fun night.
Announced. We always put on a heck of a show, and I know Boston's been waiting for us for a long time to come back. So
I was going to say, I was there for the second show, 2 years ago, back at the second ever Dynamite, and we were supposed to go there, April of last year? It's been like a year and a half, but I know that's how the shows work for the last couple of weeks, every town you guys have been, and we're supposed to get these shows right before the pandemic started. So it's been I think it's been rescheduled 4 or 5 times, so I'm looking forward to it. It should be a fun night,
Oh, yeah. I don't think we're going to have to reschedule this one, so very excited.
I think it worked out perfectly, too, so it's a Halloween episode, so it's going to be great. But like I said, I wanted to talk to you about Satnam Singh's progress. Former Dallas Mavericks player, like I said. You're helping train him at the Nightmare Factory, at your gym. Super exciting stuff. Talk a little bit about your familiarity with him before he joined AEW. Were you familiar with his time on the team and with his name before he came into the company, or is he a totally fresh face to you?
So I heard of him because of, obviously I follow everything pro wrestling, and, I knew what was going on at the WWE Performance Center when they would bring guys in and stuff like that. So I did hear of him. Also, he has a tremendous story, right? He's 1 in a billion, first ever, Indian-born NBA draft player, I guess you could say. I'm a little ignorant on these subjects, but yeah, he's the first guy from India, right, to be brought over and drafted to the NBA. So I kind of already knew his story, and then I met him in Jacksonville. They had brought him in, AEW had brought him in, him and his manager, and they just asked me if I could get in there and roll around with him and just kind of see, is he somebody that could be trained, because I did have a hand in training, Shaq, and obviously training wrestlers all together. So, we got him in there, and he was able to be coached, and that's kind of the biggest thing, right? As long as he's not going to be out there doing backflips and arm drags and drop kicks and all this other stuff. But if he can learn it, which he's, we'll get into that in a little bit, but if he can learn those things too, as long as he can be coached, I think there's something there for him. And then, of course, with our deal with Eurosport, that obviously, helped with having some, Indian athletes on our show as well, right? We're trying to be the most diverse that we possibly can. And not only is he, just from India, but he just has a tremendous story, and I think he does bring a lot to the table. And, at 7'3", he's obviously not someone you just see on the street every day. So I'm very excited to see what his future holds, and, we're just taking it step by step.
And when a guy like him comes in the door, you mentioned training Shaq too earlier this year. Did that kind of help manage your expectations a little bit, thinking to yourself, all right, if this is a guy that, obviously Shaq has been involved with wrestling before, but never a full-on match, with what we got earlier this year on Dynamite. So when you help train a guy like Shaq, that match goes well, all goes well with Shaq. Are you thinking to yourself, this might be a little easier and this is something I can definitely do?
Yeah, especially like I said, once I met Satnam when we spoke, and, I could see what kind of hard worker he was. Again, at the end of the day, as long as you put in hard work, wrestling is one of those things that the more you do it, the better you get. I don't care what anybody says. It's definitely not easy, but at the same time, it just takes a lot of hard work and dedication. So that's what Shaq did. He was there as many nights as he could be with his busy schedule to make sure that he was ready for that primetime, TV wrestling match that no one thought that he was going to be able to pull off, and he did. And so, yeah, it kind of gave me a little bit more confidence as a coach to know that, okay, I was able to, take a guy like Shaquille O'Neal, but it also helps that he's a huge wrestling fan, right? And so is Satnam, and so is Satnam. So it goes a long way. You kind of don't, you have to explain the little things, but you don't have to explain the big things. And the big things are what sells, right? Power bombs, Stone Cold Stunners, those type of things, those sell. So as long as they know those things, then it's teaching them the little things, the fundamentals.
Yeah, actually, kind of going off, that was my next question for you. You see in these, former basketball stars that they're very, very coachable. Obviously, like you said, being a wrestling fan definitely helps. Is there any other, like, obviously aside from their athleticism, that you really see brings them to the table as far as like what they bring to the table as far as like charisma? The athleticism obviously really helps. That makes them a natural for wrestling. Like, not every basketball star can come over and be successful in the ring, obviously. But is there any other one quality that you've noticed so far from working with these guys that you really think, okay, maybe not every basketball player, but if more basketball players or other sport athletes come over, they can bring that legitimacy or bring this charisma or, any of that je ne sais quoi, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, it's a case-by-case basis, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, some athletes, you have to kind of pull it out of them because they're so used to being uniformed and following a coach's orders. And whereas pro wrestling is just a completely different animal. In football, you'll get in trouble for showing personality. In wrestling, you get in trouble for not showing it. So it's a same in basketball, right? Like, the guy that's the most, outgoing on the court might get a little bit of a bad rep, i.e. Dennis Rodman. But at the same time, Dennis Rodman in pro wrestling, he fit right in. So, and that was kind of my thought process going into the whole Shaquille O'Neal thing was, look what they were able to do with Dennis Rodman and Karl Malone. And, these guys are wrestling fans, and so is Shaq, and so is Satnam. So I think that's the biggest key. You have to be a wrestling fan. If you're not a wrestling fan, this is a job that you don't like. Mm-hmm. I don't like working behind a desk, and that doesn't hurt. So the idea of taking a job that you don't like and you're not into, there's no passion there, and then on top of it, it physically hurts, it's definitely a lot more difficult, let's say, to train someone like that. Mm-hmm. So that's my first question right out the gate is, who's your favorite wrestler? Do you enjoy this? Is this something you really care to do, or is this something you want to do for money? Now, if it's something you want to do for money, that there's nothing wrong with that. Just know that it's going to be a lot harder, and then when it does start hurting, that's when most people usually give up.
Yeah, that's a good question to ask right off the bat because at least you know what they're in it for, so you can kind of maybe scope or help form the training kind of around that, which is cool. Kind of going off Satnam, how is his training going so far and what you've seen in the time that he spent so far at the Nightmare Factory?
It's going very good. I mean, we just, he started maybe 4 weeks ago. We're in our 4th week of our 12-week camp that we do. And we kind of integrated him in with, we have some brand new students and we have some advanced guys and girls as well that come in and, we don't, like when we accept everybody, we try to accept everybody, right? And that's because everyone has different goals, and we try to sit down with them. And so there are some people, like I said, that are more advanced, and we try to get him in with those guys, as long as as well as myself and our assistant coaches and stuff like that. But he's a pleasure to be around. He's also, he's getting paid to train, and he's the one rooting everyone on, mm-hmm. and it's absurd, in my mind. I'm thinking because normally you get someone that's getting paid to learn this compared to everyone else that's paying a pretty good price to be there. Mm-hmm. And he's one of the ones that's always rooting everyone on to see them succeed. So that's pretty cool, because in our culture, when I first started in wrestling in 2004, no one cared if I was doing well or not, because this is a competition at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But he's he's ingrained in that team atmosphere. So yeah, he's doing really well. Again, I don't think he's going to be the one that does the moonsaults off the top, but we haven't gotten there yet either. Who knows? Mm-hmm. Maybe he will. And he can pull it out on a special occasion like a Revolution or a Full Gear, which is coming up pretty soon too. So you just never know, but his training is going very well. He's really picking up on it pretty quickly. And, at the end of the day too, he is 7'3", so yeah. It's definitely a lot easier for people that are going to want to pay attention to someone like him.
Yeah, he's going to stand out a lot easier. In addition to yourself at the Nightmare Factory, there was a lot of notable names involved in the training process over there. Anyone else specifically kind of taking him under their wing? Or, obviously he's kind of on the same level as the other students, like you mentioned. And is there anyone else in addition to yourself that fans would know that's helping specifically train him and kind of seeing his progress come along?
Well, Cody, Cody is there, and when he's there, he does a lot of the promo aspect of mm-hmm. it, and that's going to be the key, right? In pro wrestling, if you can't speak or you can't connect with an audience, it's very difficult. So he's been working with him a lot on that. And, so when it comes to the physical stuff, like I said, myself, I'm more of the in-ring guy. But like I said, Cody has definitely taken tried to take him under his wing a little bit just on the promo aspect. So this way he could be the most well-rounded possible, because at the end of the day, we don't have a agreement with AEW, right? Like there's, a handshake agreement, and hey, QT, you work for us and you're a coach. So if we have somebody, and luckily I've been fortunate enough to train, someone like Anthony Ogogo, and where from scratch, and he kind of, made me proud going out there. So I guess I have that, that trust with the AEW to train these guys and girls. So it does go a long way for me. But yeah, I mean, like I said, we're just, trying to make him the most well-rounded possible.
Yeah, you got a good track record so far. I mean, Shaq worked out well. Ogogo worked out well. Unfortunately, he's hurt right now. Have you heard anything as far as what his injury status is and when we could see him back in the ring at some point, or not yet?
He just came back. He was overseas getting everything taken care of. So we'll see. I think it's about right place, right time, and trying to figure out the right story as well. To just throw someone out there for no reason, that's my biggest thing for me personally is, after 17 years, like the last thing I want to do is go in there and just take random bumps for no reason. And I try to explain that to Anthony as well. And, of course, everyone's itching to get back. But like right now, we just have a huge roster of huge stars now. So, it's just one of those things like, all right, let's go back to the drawing board and figure out, but in the meantime, he's just been training and working hard and doing what he does. And he's, he'll be ready when that call comes.
Yeah, when it makes sense. Yeah, obviously, you don't want to just throw him out there for no reason. So hopefully at some point when the time and place makes sense, like you said, we'll see him back on AEW TV. And then going back to Shaq, I mean, we had that match. It feels like it was yesterday, but that match, the tag team match on Dynamite, was at this point 7-8 months ago as we speak right now, which is wild to think about. When a match like that exceeds all expectations, I think a lot of people, even myself included, were thinking, what is this match going to look like? Obviously, Brandy had to be substituted for Red Velvet. We didn't really know how Shaq's progress was going to go in the ring because we haven't seen him in a formal match up to that point, and they ended up knocking out of the park with a great performance. So when Shaq walks backstage, what's the reaction with you there and, you helping, play a hand in his progress? What's the reaction like knowing a match like that went off so well?
It was awesome. Remember too, it wasn't just Shaq, it was Jade as well, who had already been previously training, and then she came over to the factory to train with us. So to have both of them, kind of knock it out of the park and definitely exceed everyone's expectations. It was great, and of course, like I made jokes about, telling Shaq about the table that there was going to be giant pads underneath, and it was very lighthearted, and him and I, we're still close to this day because of that. We've connected now. But yeah, I mean, I just told him I was very proud of him, and I think he knew deep down he knocked it out of the park too, right? So, and it's just one of those things. I know for him growing up being a lifelong, Andre the Giant fan and stuff like that, this was something that he really wanted to check off his bucket list, and to be able to do it and then do it the right way and get the reception that he got, and then also the reception afterwards from, the locker room, but as well as, the fans, right? I think they were all waiting for him to fail, which is absurd. But at the same time, I completely understand, because there are a lot of celebrities, non-wrestling athletes that come in there and they try to do it and they think it's going to be easy. But again, it comes down to hard work. And like I said, he really did put in the hard work. And so is Satnam. He's never missed a training session, which is, especially when you first get started, it's very easy to just, oh, my neck hurts, my back hurts, let's take a day off. And, we don't get any of that. So, and I can only imagine at 7'3" how it feels to fall and get back up every time, it hurts at 6'1", so I can only imagine.
Yeah, no, exactly. And especially with a match like that, too, it went so well. There's absolutely no way we can't see him back in the ring at some point. There's got to be either a sequel or another performance. He disappeared into the night on that episode in the ambulance. We didn't see him again. It was multiple months ago. With something like that, with AEW, I think a lot of the loose threads tend to be tied up at some point, so I'm hoping we see him again. Not any insider information, but you got to want to see him back in the ring in AEW, right? Especially for a match that he's talked about in the past with a guy like Paul White, who at that point had just joined AEW, and having you were just recently working with Paul at the All Out pay-per-view. Is that a match you want to see at some point happen with Shaq's progression into the ring earlier this year, Paul White being in AEW? It feels like the perfect time to be doing that match at some point down the road.
Yeah, I mean, if it were up to me, I would have had Shaq in my corner at All Out. I didn't think about it until afterwards. Like, man, I had the factory with me, but what if I had Shaq? Maybe I would have beat Paul. So you never know. Like I said, it's in a perfect world. For me, I would team with Shaq. And then maybe against someone like Paul. But of course, these are all the things that go through in my head. We're pretty far away from those things, but you just never know, right? I don't know how busy he is right at the moment. I don't know how busy Paul is and how he feels, but hey, if it can happen, I'll put it out there. Paul, find a partner, maybe we can make this thing happen.
It seems inevitable, so we'll definitely, I'm sure we'll see it at some point down the road. It's not even a matter of hope or wish. I think it's going to happen, so we'll see. But as far as you, QT, I mean, you faced Paul White at the All Out pay-per-view. I was there in Chicago. It was an amazing night with all the debuts, the matches, everything else. It was fantastic. Talk a little bit about your recent run, how you've been enjoying it, working with the Cody Rhodeses and the Paul Whites and people like that on TV the last couple of months, because you've been on a fairly regular presence on Dynamite and all the AEW shows for the last number of months since earlier this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's a dream come true. Cody and I obviously were really close, and I think everyone saw that on Road to the Top. But there's business that has to be done, and I did feel like I needed to prove myself as I was someone that, the narrative that we always told everyone is that I'm there because of being Cody Rhodes' friend. And of course, yes, when the company first started, that is how I got my foot in the door, and that's, the nepotism of wrestling, and there's nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, you do have to prove your worth and prove yourself. And my way of doing it was, turning on them and starting my own little faction. But at the same time, I was very proud of the match we did at Blood and Guts. I thought that was something that a lot of people were kind of like the Shaq deal, like waiting for, myself to not be able to hold my own. And so when I did, and, whether the outcome was the one I wanted or not, the outcome for me personally was, I thought I did a great job. I thought we had a great match that people enjoyed. And at the end of the day, that's really all I care about. I care about the reaction from our fans. Last night on Elevation, I wrestled Preston Vance, from the Dark Order, who has a match with John Moxley tomorrow night on Dynamite in Boston, right, in the Eliminator tournament. And when we went out there, the boos to me and the cheers for him, it was one of the loudest reactions I think either of us have gotten. And I think that's, at the end of the day, that's all we can ask for, right? As long as when I go out there that the crowd doesn't leave. That's my biggest thing. I've been fortunate enough that they don't. I've also been fortunate enough to wrestle when we don't have a crowd. So at the same time, that was a little scary for me, was a lot of the work that I was doing was in the times when we didn't have an audience. So it was one of those things of, okay, when the audience does come back, and now I've kind of been thrusted into the spotlight a little bit, how are they going to react? Is the stuff on Twitter, is that what's real? And then, of course, it's not, right? That's 8 people out of 1 million that are watching our show, or, 8 people out of, 10,000 that are in the building. So, there was very, for me, it was I feel like when that happened and I was out there, in Miami against Cody in the strap match, I felt that was really something where I solidified myself as, okay, I am all elite now. You know what I mean? So, and I've just been very fortunate to be in these positions that I would have never thought I'd be in. And most of them are just by happenstance, right? Like first ever strap match, first ever Blood and Guts being on the card, first ever bunkhouse match. I had Mr. Brody Lee's debut match, like just things that, I can look back now and be proud of and know that, hey, at the end of the day, when someone needs to get called on and they can trust, it seems like I'm that guy. And we'll see what happens, from here on out. Of course, the dream is to be a world champion, but at the same time, we just take it day by day and opportunity by opportunity.
For sure, and I mean, even among the first, that you forgot to mention, they're facing Paul White in his debut match, and not even just on any ordinary show, but, all out in front of a packed house in Chicago, too, so it's been quite the year for you. And not only that, but it's got to be rewarding, too, to do all the moments that you just mentioned, but to also be helping, younger guys like Aaron Solo, Nick Camarado, Anthony Ogogo, you mentioned earlier, kind of have them under your wing and really learn from you during this entire process.
Yeah, I mean, that was like the whole reason why we started the Factory faction, was to elevate these other guys. And, with Anthony having to getting hurt and going back home and stuff, obviously, when you look at all 4 of us, Anthony's probably the one that has the most potential. And then I would say Camarado, and then Solo, right? And so that was kind of the idea was, hey, let's elevate these guys. And at the same time, they got to do the work as well. And I think they have been. It's just a matter of letting it click. And unfortunately, I'm not the most popular with the IWC. So I told them from the beginning, hey, this is not going to be an easy road. They're not going to take well to you because you're with me. And they're going to think this is a whole sympathy group and blah, 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 blah. But we just got to work through that.
Mm-hmm.
And we can. As long as you put in the hard work and you listen and we take the right opportunities at the right time and we knock it out of the park, or at least we get on base. That's the biggest thing. When you get up to the plate, you got to at least get on base. So I think we've done that. And, I think over the past couple of months, Camarado and Sola have really tried to come into their own a little bit, and they've had good performances. And I think that goes a long way with, obviously the office personnel. And the one thing I try not to do is I don't push for them behind the scenes. It's not something I want to do because they have to go on their own. They have to perform when their name is called. And also, I don't want to put them in a position that maybe they're not ready for either. You never know. But the good thing is I've known Nick ever since he first started in wrestling. And Solo I've known since 2012 when I was in Ring of Honor. He was coming around with Davey Richards and stuff. And Anthony, again, someone I've met before he even started wrestling. So I think they trust me, and that's the biggest key. I'm not out there to be the big star, but, I will portray it, and I will do my best to make it the most entertaining segment we can possibly have. But at the same time, I know what my goal is, and I also know where my value lies. I think my value lies more behind the scenes, but also helping younger talent. And, it's one of the reasons why I wanted to turn heel so bad was to get to wrestle all these younger baby faces and really, put them, give them quality matches, even though they can do that on their own anyway. But also I know what I feel that where I'm most valuable, and that's, helping elevate the younger talent.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And as other people have said, you're all over the place, in addition to doing the stuff behind the scenes and the training like we talked about earlier. But, even on the shows in the last couple of months and the various moments and matches you've been a part of, not only just in the ring, but you're cutting promos all the time. You were on commentary last week. You were, you're managing the factory guys and all this other stuff. Is there any one role from an on-air standpoint? You said earlier, obviously the goal is to be world champion, but you kind of take it day by day. Is there any one aspect of this run that you've had that you've enjoyed the most, whether it be cutting the promos and getting, the boos from the audience and stuff like that, especially now as we enter the live crowd era again, or doing commentary or the managing, or is it the in-ring stuff? Obviously it's a combination of everything. Is there any one thing that stands out for you, though?
Yeah, so for me, this is crazy. One of the most fun things that I've done is coming out before the show and, getting in front of the audience on the microphone, which is just practice for me, but also getting to connect with them because, TV time on Dynamite is very expensive and it is hard to get a lot of. And of course, when you're telling a story with someone with the magnitude of stardom like Paul White, it's a lot easier to do that. But to just go out there and say, hey, can I cut a promo tonight? It's a little difficult. So that was something that we started doing, and then Tony Khan would come out there and kind of, send us to the back. And we had a lot of fun with that. And that's stuff that wasn't seen. I think during the Miami show was our first show back in an indoor arena with fans. I don't want to say with fans because then everyone in Jacksonville is going to get upset because they were diehard for us. And they stuck with us. But inside our first show, everyone was mad. Oh, QT didn't get an entrance. It's ridiculous, blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking, if y'all were at the show, you would have known that I went out there at 7:51, and I cut a 6-minute promo. And then Tony came out, and we bantered back and forth, and it was really fun. And it was a great way to get me some good heat going into the match. And then, of course, Dynamite started, and Cody came out. We had our strap match. So, yeah, that was probably some of the most fun things that I've done. But just everything in general, just getting the opportunity to go out there and perform, and like I said, not having the fans disappear, or at the same time, coming in the back and knowing that, our boss was happy and everyone else seemed to be happy backstage. And again, I don't know how many people backstage on the roster love that I get the opportunities I get, but at the same time, I think they don't mind it too much either because most of the time, there's a lot of people in that locker room that I've helped, or I've helped their friends, or I've done something to go out of my way to make sure that they've, got their storylines pitched or this, that, and the other. So, again, because I am in the office as well, I hope that doesn't, deter people from, rooting for me, because I root for everyone else. But if it does, hey, at the end of the day, like I said, I still have to go out there and perform. And, so I take it very seriously when I do get those opportunities. I try to go out there and give it my best. And like I said, try to give the best show possible.
Awesome. That's a great mindset to have. And last question for you, QT, as we wind down here. Is there any one sports athlete out there? You've trained Shaq, and he went really well. You're training Satnam right now. Is there any other, non-wrestler athlete out there that you look and you're like, all right, this is a guy I really think that, in a dream sequence, obviously, if they were interested, if they were a fan, blah, 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 that you say to yourself, this guy would make a perfect AEW star at some point down the road?
That's a good question. So I love baseball, right? I'm not big on many other sports, so I'm a big baseball guy. I'm a huge Yankee fan. When I watch the Yankees, obviously everyone's going to go right to Aaron Judge because of his size and all this other stuff. But I look at Aaron Judge, and he's such a nice guy on TV. I don't know if he would be able to handle pro wrestling. So then I look at the other guys and stuff, and then I think, like, okay, what about a Stanton? I would love to train, Giancarlo Stanton. Like, that would be great. He's already got the look. He definitely has the swag. He has the attitude. You could see him holding back on the Yankees because he doesn't want to get in trouble because the Yankees just have such a high standard of who plays for them. But he's definitely someone that I think could be a major force in wrestling, Plus, he just hits the ball so hard, It's very entertaining to watch. So that could just be his whole thing, right? He just comes out with the bat, and him and Sting can go at it or something. Who knows?
Yeah. That would be awesome. Well, speaking of baseball, you guys got to do another one of those, the softball games you guys did over All Out Weekend. That was one of the most fun events I've ever been to. You guys got to do one of those again.
Yeah, I would love to. I know going into it, we had to make sure that anyone on the pay-per-view, we can't get hurt, right?
Yeah,
yeah. God forbid someone pulls a hamstring right before the pay-per-view, especially that pay-per-view, which was a record-breaking pay-per-view for wrestling in general. But yeah, as soon as I saw a couple of the young ladies that were in the Battle Royal, which had just been placed on the pay-per-view, I remember telling Raphael, who was kind of the liaison for this softball game, I said, hey, I'm just going to go take it at bat. I'm not going to run either, though. I'll hit the ball and I'll let Solo run for me. And then what happened was I hit the ball, and I'm just, from playing baseball for 16 years of my life, instinctively I just ran the first, and then I stepped on the back of his heel. I almost, pulled a hamstring. It would have been the worst thing ever to go back to Tony and say, hey, man, I can't do this match with ball because I decided to jump in that softball game. But it was a lot of fun. Obviously, it was for a good cause. And I know that we have a lot of good stuff with the community outreach team that are really going above and beyond to make every city we go to do something special for them. So softball definitely should be in the cards coming up. And who knows? I'm an avid bowler as well, so maybe there's some bowling going on. I'm good at putt-putt golf. I'm like I don't want to say Mr. Perfect, but I'm good at everything. I'm just not great at anything except wrestling. That's what I said.
Isn't Jack of all trades the term for that?
Yeah, Jack of all trades, master of none. That's what I tell everybody.
Well, there you go. The event was great. All Out was great. QT, this was great. I appreciate your time. You're training Satnam Singh right now, former Dallas Mavericks player, like I said. Looking forward to seeing him on AEW TV at some point. And, QT, we can catch you every Wednesday night on Dynamite TNT, 8 p.m. Eastern. Back on Wednesdays this week. This is probably going up after the Boston show. But I'm looking for that tomorrow night. Looking forward to seeing you on the show. So, again, thanks so much for the time, QT. I appreciate it.
You got it. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.